the meeting to order, legislative meeting. And as is required by state code, I'm going to read in to the record the need for us to conduct this meeting remotely. I, Robert Daly, as mayor of the city of Holladay and the chair of the city council, do hereby find and declare as follows. Due to the emergency conditions which currently exist in the state of Utah and specifically in Salt Lake County and the city of Holladay as a result of COVID-19, the holding of public meetings with an anchor location is defined in the Utah and Open Meetings Public. The Open and Public Meetings Act presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location, and the risk to those who may be present at an anchor location can be substantially mitigated by holding public meetings of the city council pursuant to electronic means that allow for public participation via virtual means, and the city has the means and ability to allow virtual participation in the public meetings in accordance with the Utah Opens and Public Meetings Act. Now, therefore, based upon the foregoing, for 30 days from the date of this order, meetings of the City Council of the City of Holladay shall be conducted by virtual means without an anchor location, with my signature and Stephanie's signature as the recorder. So that allows us to conduct remotely. And with that, I'll just kind of welcome everybody and thank you for, in these challenging times that as we've discussed, for your willingness to log on and discuss the pending business of the state that will start on January 19th. We're very appreciative that our state representatives are here with us today to discuss some of those issues. We're going to start with just brief introductions. I'm going to start with our city council, and if we could just have you state your name and just a real brief explanation of the general area that you represent for our representatives, that'd be great. And we'll go in order of district, starting with District 2, Matt Durham, and then we'll go to Paul, Drew, and Dan. So Matt.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Durham. I've been on the council for about a year, and I represent District 2, which is basically from 39th South to 45th South and 27th East to Highland Drive.
Thank you. And Paul, is Paul on yet?
Paul is on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we've got you. If you
Okay.
just let him know kind of the general area you represent,
Sure.
Paul.
Paul Fotheringham, District 3, and I represent the part of Holladay that is west of Highland Drive.
Thank you. And I don't think we've got Drew on yet. She will be joining us shortly. And so then we've got Dan Gibbons, District 5.
Yeah, Dan. I'm the south end of the city, sort of the country estate zone, although I live in a very ordinary tract home neighborhood with a carport. And so we go north to Castle Lane. It sort of angles over up to the mall. Gaylin is actually my new representative, and welcome, Gaylin. So happy to have you with us.
Thanks, Dan. And now we'll swing over to our state representatives, starting with our senators. I know Senator Iwamoto's on, and then Senator Reeby. So if you just introduce yourselves briefly, and then we'll go to our representatives.
Yeah, I'm Jeannie Iwamoto. I represent District 4, and that includes all of Holladay, a little bit of Murray, most of Mill Creek, and Salt Lake City. And I'd like to just say hello to everyone and welcome Representative Benyon. I haven't met you before, and the new city council members too. And I'm lucky to have Matt Durham and Paul Fotheringham too. So thank you.
Senator Reeby.
Hi, I'm Senator Reeby. I represent Senate District 8. I represent Cotwood Heights, Midvale, Murray, Brighton, a sliver of Holladay, and a sliver of Sandy, and a little piece of Mill Creek. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here today.
Welcome. Thanks for attending. I know we've got, I think Doug Owens is going to be on in a little bit. Our newest representative is Galen Benyon, who's here. So Representative Benyon, are you there?
Yes, I am. I represent House District 46, which is about 2/3 of Cottonwood Heights, and also Alta and Brighton, and that part of Holladay where Dan is, also parts of Midvale and Murray. And I've had great conversations with Dan, and Senator Iwamoto might not remember me, but she is a trooper and has come in at the last minute when I've called her to things. So.
welcome, congratulations, thank you. You and Doug both have big shoes to fill, but I'm sure you'll do a great job. And Carol, I see you, we've already spoken with you, but go ahead and, even though everybody knows you.
Well, I'm still going to introduce myself, Carol Stackman Moss, and I represent District 37, which is, over the years I've been in, it's changed a good deal, but it now is Holladay and Murray. The Holladay portion starts at 45th South and goes to 6200. And on the east, 215, I-215. And then I have, our district is literally split in half, and half is Holladay, half is Murray. And then Murray extends to 700 West and is bounded by 5900 South and 4800 South. And I love both cities. That Murray is where my ancestors first settled, and our first home as a young family was in Murray. And now I've been happy to live in Holladay for 45 years now. And I hope the district doesn't change very much in redistricting. We all have to look closely at that. And welcome to Gaylyn, who is, I'm not going to say replacing Marie. We don't like to say that, but she is, Marie retired Polson, and we're very happy that Gaylyn won that seat and looking forward to working with her.
Thanks, Carol. And we'll have Doug logging on in a minute, I think, but he will be replacing Representative Arendt. So those are big shoes to fill too, but he's been very active for many, many years, and I have no doubt he'll do a terrific job. I mean, we've always been so lucky in Holladay to have such great representatives, both in the Senate and the House. So we appreciate all the good work you do on behalf of the citizens of Holladay, and are looking forward to kind of hearing what you have to say. I'll leave introductions of the Spatafores to them when we get to item number 3, the team Spatafor. Item number 2 is just a Holladay City update, and I'm going to keep this very, very brief because we're really here to hear what our representatives have to say and to share what maybe our concerns are as elected officials in Holladay as it relates to the upcoming agenda of the legislature. You know, obviously the biggest challenge we've had this year has been the same that you have had as our representatives, and that's, you know, dealing with this COVID crisis. And we certainly see light at the end of the tunnel. We're hopeful that things are going to get better. Our attitude has been that we are all still getting paid and still have responsibilities that we need to fulfill. And we're trying to make sure we don't use COVID is an excuse not to continue to do the business of Holladay, and I think our staff has done a tremendous job of that. You know, our goals this year, I would say the big things we're going to be working on this year in the city of Holladay are a small area master plan that is close to being voted. The Holladay Crossroads is on the very southwest portion of the city. You're probably best known where the store and XL Fitness is. So that master plan will kind of reconsider what future development, how the city would like to see future development occur in that area. That's going to be a big issue we continue to debate and hopefully get that to a vote in the next month. We're going to be tracking very closely the gravel pit, what we call the gravel pit development that's in Cottonwood Heights up on Wasatch Boulevard. That's probably right in the heart of where Gaylyn is working. Dan Gibbons is very, very involved with the Canyon Cove residents. And we're particularly interested, I think, in the infrastructure connections, the transit connections to that site, and also the impacts and long-term impacts to the canyons, Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons. We're interested in what the state's going to be doing in terms of transportation funding in those particular areas as the pressure on those canyons continues to grow, and this will add to that. So that's something we're going to keep a big eye on, even though it's not really within our jurisdiction or jurisdictional purview. We're obviously going to continue working very hard on Holladay Hills. The development of Block D is underway. If you drive by the old Cottonwood Mall site, you see earthwork being done. We expect the footings to be laid in May for Block D. The city will remain very involved as that development continues over what is projected to be the next 5 to 10 years. We're going to be very interested in following the, as is stated on the agenda, the accessory dwelling unit discussion that's going to occur. We understand Representative Ray Ward is kind of leading out on that, and want to hear about, your thoughts about what's going to go on with that. And also probably the biggest thing that we're going to be embarking on is a tax increase. We have already started to reach out to the community and explain the challenges we're having with funding our infrastructure, what we think we're going to need, and see if we can bring our residents on board to imposing a property tax increase this year. So that's going to be a big issue for us, especially with COVID, because we want to make sure that it is completely transparent why it is we're doing what we're doing, what underlies the need, and try to bring our residents on board in over that process. So those are probably the 5 biggest things we're going to track this year, in my opinion. I need to circle back because I forgot to introduce our staff. And so Gina, if you want to introduce yourself and then maybe bring in Holly and Linnyce, that'd be great. And then we'll move to item 3.
Sure. I'm Gina Chamness. I'm the city manager in Holladay, and I'm also a Holladay resident, so a constituent as well. I'd like to introduce Linnyce Davenport, who is on day 3 as the city's new Community and Economic Development Director, and Holly Smith, who is our assistant to the city manager and coordinates a lot of our legislative work with the Spataforce. And then Stephanie, who is hiding underneath the City of Holladay seal, is our city recorder. There she is.
So maybe Linnyce and Holly just say hi real quick in that order so they can put a face to your name.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you again in this new role. I'm really happy to be with Holladay City and look forward to the conversation and to many more conversations. Thank you.
You think I know where the mute button is. Hi, I'm Holly Smith. I'm looking forward to this next session as well. And as Gina said, I try to keep track of everything that's going on the Hill. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Okay, thank you. Did I get everybody, Gina? Did we get anybody else? We don't have Drew or Doug, so they'll probably come in over the course of the meeting, unless I missed them. Okay, so we're on item number 3 now. I think everybody knows Dave and Ashley. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we will let them walk us through the balance of the agenda. So Dave and Ashley, you've got the floor.
So it's nice to see you all. I think everybody knows us here, but Dave and Ashley. Actually, if you look on it looks like it's Ashley and Ashley because Dave logged in on mine. He's starting to do that, and then he leaves very terrible comments in the comment section, and then it looks like I write terrible things. So if there's anything terrible written, it's Dave, not me. So we've met all. I think we met every year. Galen, we've had a couple conversations with housing. So it's good to see you all. This year, I think our first and biggest question is to the legislators is how best to communicate and connect with you. You know, we're not going to have as many hallway conversations and random run-ins. We're assuming text is the best. Is that the kind of, okay, that's what we've been getting. The first week, we don't know really how accessible it is going to be for lobbyists. So we will be up there that first week and kind of feel it out and see how it is. How COVID-y it feels, and then we'll kind of go from there. So, but if that works for you, we'll send you emails, but we'll to do fast text. Well, I guess we'll do texts. So, I guess we'll just quickly go through some of the legislative issues that we've been covering for Holladay that they've kind of highlighted as important. ADUs and affordable housing. Dave and I have been following the Commission on Housing Affordability. There's been a lot of discussion, and I don't know what's going to actually come out of there. But we'll be watching that, and I think it'll be important because there might be a link to transportation and expanded transportation and housing. So as something comes out of there, we'll be sure to, because for Holladay, it's always affordable housing, but how does it fit locally into each and every city, right? Large state mandates and making sure that that doesn't happen. We try to do that, especially with SB 34 a couple of years ago, with the moderate income housing plans. You guys were all very helpful with that. So continuing that, one small portion that is coming out of the Affordable Housing Commission is a mediation program, an extended statewide mediation program, trying to basically take the pressure off of, say, evictions and to try to avoid evictions and try to go through a mediation process. So there's a couple small bills like that I think we'll be looking at. I think the big one is the ADU bill from Representative Ray Ward. It's HB 82. I think the careful thing there, and Mayor and Gina, Holly, please chime in. Holladay will be in the process of creating an ordinance. And so I think finding that careful balance of expanding the use of ADUs without a state mandate that negates some of the things that the city is working on. So is that a fair statement? I don't want to put any words into the mayor, mayor's mouth, or the council. But so we'll be working on that bill with the league to make sure it doesn't negatively affect the city.
Ashley, can I ask you, is there a concern that, what is normally the purview of municipalities is being usurped by the legislature? Is this one of those instances? Because I don't have an objection to ADUs. I'm actually one of the promoters of it.
Yeah.
But my primary concern is are they grabbing back usurping authority again from cities?
So one of the concerns, and this is the way it's currently drafted, is if a city allows ADUs, anything that is zoned as single family use, and if it's an internal unit, so meaning like a basement or attic or even of an extra bedroom, it would be an allowable use. So that's the way that the bill is drafted. So if you have a single family home and you put an additional unit in your basement, it's an allowable use. So it would automatically be allowed if you allow ADUs in your city.
I'm sorry, there's another little question. Sorry to get into the weeds on this. Maybe it's premature, but would that include like lofts over detached garages?
I think if it's inside an existing, that's a good question. But if it's inside of an existing space or an existing part of your house structure, yes. What I think that what Ray Ward is differentiating between is when you build a separate unit. So it's like if you build a separate unit in your, but that's a good question because that's a very good question.
Yeah, because the garage being detached is not generally livable space, but if you can,
make it livable.
I have a constituent right now who's been after us for a couple of years about trying to put an ADU in a loft over his garage. So anyway, that's why I bring it up.
What Ray Ward is doing, I think, is a lot of cities following Senate Bill 34, put ADUs as something they wanted to do. And some of the cities who've done that, Holladay's not in this situation because we're in the process of doing an ordinance now. But some cities have made it difficult to do ADUs, even though they're saying they are doing ADUs. And so his logic is, if it's internal, perhaps and it has to be owner occupied. First of all, it can't be rental property. It has to be owner occupied. Is if 20 years ago you had a family of 5 and now you're down to 2 people and you've got extra bedrooms, there should be no reason why you have to put up a new fire door, put up a separate entrance, all those sorts of things if you want to have an internal ADU. And so I think what he's trying to do is trying to get through some of the red tape-ish situations. There's still a concern about parking. He would say that if there were 4 bedrooms in that house now and only 1 or 2 are being used, then you've had room in that area for additional parking in the past. So that shouldn't be an issue. But those are the issues, Paul. I don't think it's not a zoning override. It's just saying that if, as a city, if you want to do ADUs, if it's external, it's whatever you decide. And I would probably argue and have to look at the bill, because I would think the definition of a loft over an attached garage is external, not internal. That's how I would argue that. You know, but the thing is if it's internal and you've got the rooms and whether you don't have to go through all of the extra code issues.
Has the league taken a position yet on this? Dave, do you know?
I don't think they've taken an official position. I
They-
think there's been a lot of discussion and I think there's a lot of concern. I think there's, you know, on one hand, they're saying, okay, a lot of cities are saying, okay, this is an acceptable thing to do. We could do this. But I think there's some cities that are really concerned about overcrowding, parking, losing control, you know, a lot of those big issues. So I think it's still quite in the robust discussion.
My guess is they'll take a position soon. They've had a discussion, I think, at the last, let's say, the policy committee, Mayor.
If I could ask a follow-up question. So I'm concerned that I don't have a problem with the legislation as you've stated it. Like Paul, what I would be worried about is if this somehow bled into a short-term rental sort of scenario where it would authorize a short-term rental in an owner-occupied house. I'm assuming it doesn't do that, but I just wanted to clarify that.
You know, Dan, that's a great point too. We'll keep that note.
Though, you know, and the one thing I will mention is it does have the provision in there that it has to be owner occupied, but I can imagine on a city level that might be very difficult to regulate. So I think that's just one thing to kind of think about, and is how is that regulatable on the city's end. So
Now, when you're talking about owner occupied, I'm assuming you're talking about the main residence
yes,
is owner occupied, then they can rent to the internal ADU. But even still, that doesn't necessarily address the short-term rental, the STR issue, because you could still have owner occupied main unit, but then because everybody's trying to figure out how to accommodate the ADU issue without creating an STR issue, because everybody hates the STRs.
that's a very, I mean, these are all the things that I think really need to get kind of.
You know,
fleshed
Mike,
out.
there's an article today in the Tribune on this actually, and I thought that it mentioned that they were also going to require it be 30 days or more. So trying to take it out of that
Yes,
I think there's that same concern at the state level that, you know, it almost sounds like what he wants to do is he wants to make it easier for owners that have a basement or something to rent it out and take away all the roadblocks to that, but doesn't want to open it up to Airbnbs and you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, I guess we'll see how it evolves. And by the way, Doug Owens is on as well, Representative Owens, so welcome.
Hi, sorry to be late. I was late getting back to where I could do a Zoom call from a meeting out at the south end of the valley, and then I got my emails messed up and couldn't find the Zoom link. Sorry about that.
We're glad you're here.
Just one last question about that ADU issue from me, at least, and that is, you know, in the last session, there was that provision where cities had to update their general plans to address, you know, the affordable housing or moderate medium income housing. And so is this something now that they're also pushing on us, but can we actually use our adoption or embracing of the legislation that's about to happen as part of what we're required to do in the last session?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's twofold. I think Ray Ward's intentions are, I think, legitimately, he has constituents that have tried to rent out ADUs or to rent out their basements and have had troubles doing that. And I really think the other part of it too is ADUs were an option on that menu and a lot of cities chose it, but a lot of some cities, you know, I think there's some cities that have not made it easy to implement the ADU. So I think those are the kind of the two things. And I think it's gained some traction because a lot of cities are looking to use, but they haven't really made it a feasible option sometimes. So.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because it's one of the things that we chose. I don't want suddenly to have that option not count for us anymore. If it's suddenly, you know, being forced upon us, it doesn't count as credit to our general
And-
plan sort of
Yeah,
thing.
and the bill doesn't mandate it. All it simply says is if you do allow ADUs, you have to allow the internal ADU in a single family zone. So only if you elect to use them, to do them.
And Paul, it doesn't take that away as one of your moderate income housing plan issues.
Correct.
What it's just saying, if you do it, these are going to be the rules. So go ahead, Ash. Why don't you
Yeah,
do more
just
land
quickly,
use stuff?
and a couple other things. I think economic development will be something we're really
Before you
interested in.
go to economic development, there are a couple more land use issues we want to talk about, if
Okay.
that's okay. The first one is was just numbered last night, House Bill 98. Paul Ray has a bill that essentially will allow developers to do their own plan checking, and that's really a horrible situation. You know, we've heard from today, you know, other cities, we've heard from the league, we've heard from Unified Fire that there are significant issues with it's House Bill 98, it's Paul Ray, and it's for the home builders. And essentially what they want to do is to use a metaphor. They want to allow the fox to guard the hen house when it comes to inspections and plan checks of their development.
And it also disallows cities to regulate any sort of exterior building or building requirements. So, you know, whether it's facades, pitches, windows, room counts, things like that. So it's a very heavy-handed bill that has, like Dave said, the league up in arms. I think it has code officials up in arms, has UFA has some concerns. The insurance company, I think, is going to get on this one because I think they have concerns about if developers design, build, and inspect. Who's watching the so yeah. That one I think is going to be the other thing I think to mention is Paul Ray is running that bill, but I think Representative Mike Schultz is interested in that bill, so it has quite a bit of movement. So I think that's going to be one we're going to need help with this year.
You know, the bill was numbered last night, and legislatively speaking, that has been taken more of our time today, that bill, than any of the other bills, which kind of replaces police reform, you know, and so that was kind of a different situation, but please keep an eye on that. There's a third land use bill that I know Holladay will be up in arms on, and it's Senate Bill 61. And Mayor and Gina and the council members, it deals with billboards. Now, I know we Holladay doesn't allow billboards, but we still have some from when we were part of the unincorporated county. Senate Bill 61 allows billboard companies to turn those billboards into electronic billboards, period. And yes, it's a Reagan outdoor bill. And yes, Dewey Reagan was at both fundraisers last night and today plying his arguments, you know, but the bottom line is and this bill was numbered, I think, the other day. So Gina and the mayor, I'm not sure we've gotten it to you, but you know, we need to get more information from you. But this is one that I know Holladay, you know, when Lynn was with you, we always looked at billboards. So I know, you know, this is still an issue that is very concerning.
Dave, is this similar? It seems like there was a similar push maybe at the end of last session.
I think it was the year before.
The year before, okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's going to be another one, I think, that talks about being able to relocate within a certain mile, extending that from 1 mile to 4 miles. So the billboards are back.
So
May I ask a question? Is there a way that we can put in language that would protect our residential areas and limit the ability for us to have these billboards in residential areas? Because I think if we could come up with a compromise where they'd be on major roads instead of in our local neighborhoods, and then also maybe having a time frame where we can turn them off and on. If we're looking at who's running this bill, that's a heavy lift. So putting some parameters in place might be best for us. Is there any language that we can maybe incorporate into this bill to protect our cities?
Gina, Mayor, I'll let you answer that question. It's a policy issue.
Well, I mean, from a policy standpoint, I don't want the state taking away our ability to regulate that within our community. I mean, we've had fights about that, especially with our schools. We've had to, tell our own schools that they couldn't have them except where they're grandfathered in. And it's been something that our councils stood pretty firm on since I've been on the council for 8 years. And so, I guess if it gets to the point where it's going to get crammed down our throats, then we'd want to certainly, be able to restrict it as much as possible. But I think I speak for the council when I say our desire would be to control the character of our own city and how it looks and is presented. And, if another city wants to allow that, then, more power to them. But I don't want the state, dictating how we, regulate the character of our community as it relates to billboards. I guess that would be my position.
I completely agree with you, but when I look at who's running this bill, it makes me nervous. And so as a backup, I'd like to see if there's some kind of language that we could have ready for that. And if you can help us craft that language so that we would be ready to implement that at a moment's notice. Sorry, Janie, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's good. I just wanted to say, I did a electronic billboard ordinance when I was in the county council. And I went to school with the electronic billboard company, they're Young's. And so I learned everything about electronic billboards, and they were good to work with. And we did do that. We put in bigger areas in Mill Creek, West Mill Creek, where they wanted it. We had different, we changed it down there. We did, the way the light shined on it or what different things so it would work in residential areas. So I'd be happy to meet with them too, because I know them really well. And they were good, but Reagan kind of got involved in it, but they backed off because it was electronic billboards. So it's really young company, but I know that Reagan it's really tough when they do something, but I'd be willing to talk to them.
Carol, before you go, Janie,
know.
this is a Reagan bill, because it allows all of the current Reagan bills that aren't electronic to become electronic. So that's why this is a more important bill for Reagan than it is for Young. But I think any help that you could give would be helpful. I think Kathleen is right. We need to have issues in our back pocket in case we need them. For example, the number of lumens. Do you reduce what time do you reduce the lighting at night? Those sorts of things. But one of the big issues, in my estimation, because I have a personal hatred of billboards, is that once you change an 8-sheet billboard to an electronic billboard, you've increased the value of that billboard exponentially. And then what happens is as a community, if you ever want to get rid of it, that's going to cost you more to get rid of it. So I think one of the issues that has to be considered, Janie, and you could help with this a lot, is there's got to be some sort of an approach that if it's changed from an 8-sheet to an electronic, that when the time comes for that billboard to be gone, the value is not as an electronic, it's as the old 8-sheet. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That does. Yeah.
Especially if it's in an area that's a residential area. We've got to make sure that the cities still have control. And I do know that a lot of folks will be very, very interested in this, because this is the heavy hand of the state telling cities what we want you to look like.
And Mayor Silvestrini would be against this too, right? Because he has a partner. There's a lot of people that work for Reagan, so.
Yes.
Is there a way for us to put some kind of fee schedule on the revenue that they're getting? So if they're going to charge more money and they're going to be receiving more revenue, they could put a fee schedule. I don't know. I'm just coming up with something in my head, like making it less palpable by putting a fee schedule. Say if you are going to receive 12 ads on this billboard for 7 hours, you are required to adhere to a fee schedule to the, I don't know.
Kathleen,
creating more revenue.
You're right, but the problem is billboards are taxed as personal property, not real property, and they're depreciated. So right now you're probably getting cents, literally cents as property tax on a billboard.
So can we look at that statute?
Well, we can look at it, but I'll tell you what the billboard company will tell you to do.
What?
Shove it.
Is there sales tax or just property tax? Is property tax the only revenue stream to the city, or just, is there any sales tax on the revenue?
Property tax is the only tax on it. You know, I'm going to go back. You know, I've been this is gonna be my 47th session, so I've been involved in a lot of billboard bills, and I know a couple of you may remember George Mantes. I don't know if anybody remembers George, but he was on revenue and tax years and years and years ago. When on a billboard bill, I took out of my pocket 24 cents, and I put 24 cents on the table, and I said, this is how much money Salt Lake City is getting on this billboard at the intersection of I-80 and I-15. And Reagan wants to increase its use by exponentially. You know, we lost the bill, but I did generate a lot of laughs. Carol, you wanted to say
I have
something.
a question. Okay. I missed who's sponsoring that bill.
Scott Sandel.
Sandal.
Okay. And then just a couple things.
Sandal, did you say, and who's the house?
We don't know who the house sponsor is. My guess, if I had to guess, it'll be Francis Gibson.
Some
That's
years
my
ago, Dewey proudly told me how he took down that huge billboard up at Mount Olympus Shopping Center that blocked the view of the mountains because so many people protested, and he was trying to make a point to me. I went to one of those luncheons for a few years, several of them, and listened to their arguments. That he listened to the community and he responded, and you know, but that was a rare occasion, right? But I've been told, I think it was Patrice said, that this bill you're referring to would include billboards that are all over the state in some of the beautiful scenic areas.
Yes.
Remember Billy had a few years ago that were along the scenic route. What's that highway? And so this takes in more than just affects more than just cities, which is really important that we protect our cities. But I think we have to look at it statewide and to the detriment it would have in areas like that of scenic beauty.
Well, I think the bottom line is, you know, and to Senator Reeby's point, and you know, Gina was texting me, and I think this is something we need to discuss a little bit internally with council, because I'm making an assumption that we're still in alignment on that, but some of the new council members may feel differently. But you know, generally, I think we want to maintain. We would be opposed to them forcing this down our throats. But if it gets to the point where, you know, if Dave and Ashley come back and say, this bill is going, you better get involved in trying to restrict it as much as possible, then yeah, we'd want to get involved in terms of where they could, you know, place them and those sorts of things. But
Mayor, if I could pitch in there too, I am 100% in alignment with you, and I know my neighbors are, and they would be very grateful if this thing could be killed. But if it can't be killed, it would be great to have either restrictions and or some kind of a revenue stream coming to the cities. I don't know if that could be possible. Clearly not through property tax, but through some kind of a use tax or something. It just you know, Dave's comment about the 24 cents really hits home with me. And so I can guarantee you that my constituents in my part of the city are way opposed to this sort of thing.
So
I think it would be great, Mayor Gina, if you could let us know, for example, where the billboards are in the city, you know, because that would tell us, particularly the zoning, you know, or that, you know, I know there's some on Highland Drive, because you know that's, and I think there's some on 45th South, but I'd have to, you know, let's take a look at those, and let's plan an absolute. I know the league will be opposed to it, so we'll oppose. But then, you know, then we can put some thought as to what
parameters we can put in there to make it more palatable. So, but this this is, we just want to make sure the legislators know that this is high on the radar and that we'll continue to work it and coordinate with the league. A lot of these things, with the cities, that we'll be very closely coordinated with them, but make sure that we know exactly where Holladay stands in particulars. So, but we will. This is one we'll definitely be working.
Do we have an ordinance that says no new billboards? Are we that black and white?
In Holladay?
Yeah.
I think we do. It's gone back so far. I know we just got one taken down up in the village that they've been trying to get taken down for years by Myers Pharmacy. But I don't know, Gina, do you know if we have a no billboard ordinance, no new billboards?
I believe we do. Let me take a quick look at our ordinance to confirm that. But
I'm pretty sure we do, and it dates back to my earlier service on the council 20 years ago.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
One thought.
It does. It's yeah. We have one.
Okay.
Yes.
Because here's one thought that I had is if we lose one avenue to amend the bill would be if a city has an ordinance as of January 1, 2021 that does not allow new billboards, this bill doesn't take effect in that city. That's one thought. That Linnyce, you're smiling. You're also muted.
I think that's a really good idea. I was just texting to find out if we had that ordinance, but it's a really good idea, Dave.
But that's one of the things that I thought about is, not that a city can't go in and do an ordinance right now if the bill passes, but if the city had an ordinance that said no new billboards, period, and it's been on the books, then they would be exempt from the statute. Because the city's already made a policy that we don't want any billboards. And quite frankly, going from a paper billboard to an electronic billboard is a new billboard.
Right.
Okay. Hey, Dave, can I just jump in real quick and just to make sure that we stay on a timeline. We've got till 6, and I think we do want to leave a little bit of time at the end for our legislators too. So I just want to make sure you and Ashley have plenty of time to touch on all the issues, say in the next, 35 minutes that you want to touch on.
Yeah.
But that's a polite way, everyone, of the mayor saying, yeah, and let Ashley run the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, not Dave. We can go quickly and just, we just want to bring a couple of more things that we've talked to the city about that is on the radar. I think economic development will be a big one this year, especially there's going to be a new it's Representative Hawkins and Senator Ann Milner that's going to run a bill to create a new council to look at the new vision of economic development. And so I think that one's going to be a big one for the city to kind of see. I think what we've heard is a more integrated approach to economic development, which touches on housing and transportation and growth and the impacts of growth. So I think that one's going to be higher on our radar to just watch where that goes. And Linnyce it's going to be great to work with Linnyce on that. Another one I think is transportation. Whether it's allocation of quarter monies and or bonding. We've heard there's a good chance of bonding with the rates where they are. Putting projects forward. I think so. As that moves forward, and I think this year is going to be especially difficult for lobbyists to hear random things, which is how we usually learn of things. So when you hear of things, of a list of projects or how the money's allocated, that's going to be of utmost importance for Holladay. So we need your eyes and ears on that one.
Hey, could I jump in here real quick? Because I think this is important. We worked on that 3900 South funding issue for a couple of years to great success. And I know that's going to be updated here in a minute. But do we need to, and when I say we, I mean like our staff and the council, do we need to start thinking about or working on another major project within the city that we could have queued up in the event that funding did become available? And I'm kind of speaking to Holly and Gina, and have we thought about that at all, or?
I think that's important.
I'd plan it. Absolutely, I would plan it.
Yeah, I mean, a part of it was we had, you know, that 3900 South, we worked collectively on that. We had everything put together. And so we were ready to pull the trigger on that. And I know if there's more money that comes available for 3900 South, you should get it, but it won't be in Holladay necessarily, be moving further west into Mill Creek, which is great. But I would just, you know, we might want to think about as a council and a staff, if there's another, what would be our next priority in terms of a major transportation project that we would want to kind of get in the queue should money become available.
Is there anything you have on Highland Drive? Or I was just, there was an issue on safety issue on Highland with Mill Creek. But remember years ago, when they asked the county to bond for, or they were asked for the bonding, you know, because we had good bonding so that they could do roads. And in return, that was when we did, but you had already done your project. So then we got money for Knutson Park. But I think you should definitely have some of those.
And Mayor, I'd be happy to put together a list of projects with our staff for the council to review in anticipation of this conversation.
Only other thing I have on the list is the legal notices clarification and or changes. I think the big issue on this is obviously now that the Trib and the Deseret are now only printed weekly, that modifications and changes need to happen there. Is there a bill file open already, Dave?
Not that I know of.
I know I think there's an open bill file, but nothing drafted. So I think that's going to be another one on the radar. Gina or Holly, did you guys want to add on to anything on that?
No, I know this is an issue that the Recorders Association and the League are also looking at. We'll take our lead from the League for sure, but it is an issue would appreciate some clarification on, because we want to comply with the law. We want to be transparent, but you know, the print world is changing, and I think our statute might have to change to reflect that.
One last bill to bring up, because this was a big issue for us last year in Holladay. Corey Malloy, you know, and I know Carol, you know, with Doug and Galen being freshmen, they don't know Corey like we know Corey. So when you mention Corey Malloy, you know, essentially you're talking about guns, and he has House Bill 76, which essentially would do what he tried to do a year ago, which is a state preemption of any local gun ordinance in the state. And in Holladay, because we have a lot of areas that, you know, we have ordinances against hunting in the city limits. And we tried to talk to Representative Malloy a year ago, saying that, you know, other than allowing us to make sure there's no hunting in city limits and all that sort of thing, we don't really care what he wants to do, you know. But he really wasn't eager to work with us on it. So Kara, we'll have that same issue, and I know gun bills are not easy to deal with up there, you know. But anyway, we've got to try to do something to make sure that our ordinance for no hunting in city limits is not impacted by what Corey Malloy wants to do.
I think that's about it, and I can turn it over. I think just the last quick thing I'll mention, and it's number 6, so I'll just address that and then give the legislators the remainder of the time. Just like we've done every year, we will do a bill list, and we'll send it out to the city on Thursdays to get their, you know, it's the priorities, you know, what the bills do and what our position is, and then we'll make sure we get that to all of our legislators every Monday, so you guys have an idea of where we stand on certain bills. And, you know, we'll try to keep it as concise as possible, but to the important bills. So if there's other bills that maybe if you want to know where we stand, just let us know. The other thing I'll mention is Carol knows her, but Maddie, who was Carol's intern last year, is going to work with Dave and I this year. So she's going to be the one coordinating with y'all. She's lovely and brilliant, and will be a good addition to the team. So with that, we'll make sure that you guys are all coordinated and up to date with where we stand. So that's it, unless there's any questions.
Ashley, there's under transportation, there is a note on 3900 South. Is there anything we need to cover there?
That was, unless there's something specific, if there's additional funding, like you mentioned, if there's additional funding that we need, make sure that that's ready to go if there's monies available. But if there's, that was the only thing we brought up and that we talked about. So
Are we funded along the east-west stretch of that all the way to our border? Do we still need a little bit of money from 2300 East to Highland?
That is my recollection, is that this project ends at 23rd East. And I know we had those segments lettered. And I think we had an additional segment, I'm trying to remember. And Holly, if you remember, please hop on. But I think we had a segment from 23rd East to Highland as well.
That's correct, yes.
So we could still use a little bit more money to finish that stretch, that little stretch there.
Holly, can you provide us what we need? And let's get to the legislators, what we need to finish that stretch.
Absolutely, yeah.
That, and then any other projects that we might have. I think that would be great.
So Dave, can you guys talk a little bit? Dan and I were on a call last night with Cottonwood. We weren't on the call, but we were monitoring the council meeting last night as they discussed the gravel pit. And prior to that, they had a legislative update, and Greg Curtis was talking about $1 billion of money, transportation money that was available, not spent, that was non-allocated or something. Dan, do you recall the language you used on that? It's like, there's $1 billion we have here to spend.
Right. And we need to find out places to allocate it. Yeah.
I mean, do you know anything about that, Dave? Or
well,
we haven't heard specific transportation money, but we do know that there's a surplus of $1 billion ongoing and $1 billion one time, so that the state has a lot of money this year because they cut so much in anticipation of COVID. I don't know if he's talking about additional billion, but I do know that there's $1 billion ongoing and $1 billion one time of money. So this is a good year especially for one time, but this is a good year for projects. So if there's things that you need money for, this is a good year for that.
And the other thing transportation was talking about, Mayor, is there are a lot of bonds that are coming off, that are being paid, that'll be paid for or can be refinanced to it, and then add projects to it. So we might be talking about that as well, and that's a possibility too, because I think right now the state's at about 50% of our bond capacity, so we can do a lot of bonding, and the interest rates right now for bonding is great compared to some of the bonds that could be refinanced. So you add that with the headroom, that may be what Greg's talking about.
yeah, the only thing I would like to say about that, and this is my opinion, and maybe Dan will chime in as well. But as those discussions continue, a concern I have that's not in Holladay, but I think affects Holladay long term, is when they were discussing the gravel pit last night, a couple of issues came up that caused me concern. Number one was they're talking about the transit hub that's in Holladay that abuts the gravel pit development as being the transit, the kind of the transit location for this new big mixed use development. And my understanding is, in talking with Gina is we already have issues of overflow at that transit hub right now. And, they need to figure out, I think, and I'm kind of addressing Representative Benyon and Senator Reedy as well, because I know they live right in that area. But I think the transit issue needs to be on the radar for that gravel pit development area. If there's money available, I think we would support investment there. I know there was some money allocated to purchase land in that area for a big, maybe parking facility or transit facility for those canyons. But I just think that these canyons are going to continue to be an issue. And if there's money available, though we would love to have it for individual roads within Holladay, I think we would also support, and I think Mayor Silvestrini would as well, some long-term investment in figuring out a way to move people up and down those canyons. That's just kind of an overarching comment. Dan, I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to
No, I
add
think you,
anything to that, but that concerned me, that comment last night about using that hub as their transit location for this big new mixed-use development.
yeah, and I think you're exactly right, Mayor. And there is in the plan for the Wasatch Canyons project that's ongoing for Little Cottonwood, a Big Cottonwood Canyon, to have a major new hub kind of in the middle of the bigger gravel pit area. But the problem we have, representatives right now, is they're wanting to develop this this northern smaller gravel pit and put a new road onto Wasatch Boulevard, and then put major use on that existing sort of UTA park and ride across the street. And it would be awesome if there could be money for them to build this long-term transit thing to relieve pressure, so that it's not going to be spilling over into Holladay for the next 10 years until the larger gravel pit is developed.
So I've been trying to monitor this pretty closely, but I can tell you there's probably like 5 different agencies having 5 different meetings about this project every week. I have continually asked that we do not work to solely bring cars into the Wasatch corridor. My push is constantly that there has to be a better way than having every car from outside of Holladay, Little Cottonwood, Sandy, Draper driving to the Wasatch corridor to park their cars. We don't have the capacity for that. It's short-sighted and it's in the past. My understanding was that they had a potential buyer of the gravel pit and that fell through. And when you look at the plans of the gravel pit, there's supposed to be they call it like a boulevard where there's a corridor and a walking area. And it does connect over Wasatch Boulevard. There's also a proposal from the former town councilman Chris McCandless and Niederhauser to create a gondola with a huge parking structure adjacent to Wasatch Boulevard 210 heading up the canyon. They did purchase the land to the east of the approach road going up to Alta, so that will remain open lands. But I'm very concerned about what's going on in Sandy, Holladay, Cottonwood Heights. And I know that Mike Peterson, the mayor of Cottonwood Heights, has also expressed concerns about bringing all this traffic into our neighborhoods. So there's not capacity on our roads to handle the traffic. I've brought up repeatedly that my kids go to a school that's half a mile away and they need a police escort when they're on the bus when we have a snowy day. So it's a big problem and many cities are involved. We also have some Salt Lake City land that's involved. We have Salt Lake County land that's involved. So it's just there's a lot of issues, and I'm telling you that I keep advocating for finding another way to not bring cars to our area and to start the mass transit and the transit further away with the thought that there's no one that's going to switch 5 different transportation modes to go skiing. I mean, if you have 2 kids and you're 2 adults, just trying to get my stuff in my car and heading up the canyon's hard enough. I mean, trying to negotiate a family off a bus, onto a train, onto a gondola, it makes no sense. And then up in the canyons, they're talking about changing the whole structure of how the buses drop or the gondola drops people off up there as well. So I wish there was an easy answer to this, but it's a lot of agencies. And I think a consistent message that we can bring together is that we should be keeping traffic out of these areas and have a long-term one shot up the canyon from wherever they're coming from. So it's been a struggle.
Okay, well, might I suggest that we open it up to our council members to see if they have any specific questions for the legislators before they go into session, then maybe we can see if the legislators have any information they think would be important to pass along to us before we adjourn. So let me start with, we'll just start with 2 and go down. So if you've got something, feel free, this is your time. So maybe we'll start with Matt and work our way down. I don't know if Drew ever made it on. Okay. Matt, anything for our legislators?
Well, I just want to thank them all for being here and for taking the time to meet with us. I think the presentation's been really thorough. I can't think of anything right now that I have that's a question, but I'm really grateful for the people that we have working with us at the legislature, and I'm grateful that they'd be here to talk to us.
Yeah, and I would just add too, for those that haven't been, Matt has, and he served on the league board, so he's pretty familiar with this, but typically, you know, Ashley and Dave will put a sheet together of the bills that they know are important to us and send those to us weekly, let's say, to kind of give us updates. So you'll get a list of the bills that they feel may be of interest to you, might want to track on a weekly basis. So Paul?
Mayor, we will have that, excuse me, we will have that. And what we'll do is everyone look for Maddie's email address, because we'll compile that and Maddie will take care of all of our communication and follow up with all of the calendar work. So you'll get that. Ashley, what day is that going to happen?
Thursday, and I'll probably send it out with an update either tomorrow or Friday. Even though we're a couple weeks out, it might just start getting your eyes on things and get familiar with, because the bills are starting to come out really quickly. But typically we'll send it to the city on Thursdays and wait for some comment and feedback, and then try to get it to our legislators, you know, by Monday sometime. So the legislators have an updated bill list every week.
I wanted to ask, do any of the you senators or representatives have any bills that where you're the primary sponsor that you'll be pushing?
Yeah, we can all go through it if you want to.
Yeah.
Did you want to do that or have all the city council members?
Yeah,
Well,
let me
if you can do that at the end, a different time. Go ahead, Mayor.
Let me have Dan weigh in, and then maybe we'll do that, Paul. We'll have each of them go through and maybe touch on the ones that they may be running that they think are going to be important to Holladay representatives.
Well, before we do that, just then we'll leave that for later. But yeah, I'd like to echo Matt's comments. I just so appreciate working with each of you over the years, and best of luck for what's coming up. It's always in session is tough work, and so we appreciate all you do for us.
Yeah, and I'll just real quickly, I don't have any specific questions, just great gratitude for each of you. I'm actually an independent. I'm neither Republican nor Democrat, but I recognize the public spiritedness of each of you, and I'm so grateful for you. I want to particularly thank Gay-Lynn, who, one of the reasons I voted for Gay-Lynn over her opponent, other than her qualifications, is when she called me first, she said, okay, I'm taking notes. I want you to tell me what's important for Holladay. Whereas the opponent called me and said, I want to tell you how great I am. And I just appreciate that attitude so much. And I'm grateful for each of you and wish you all the best. And particularly Carol, wish you and your great husband all the best, and look forward to hearing from you.
And I'll just, from my standpoint, since I'm actually a council member too, I'm just going to ask very quickly. I don't want to take a lot of time on this because I want to leave time for our legislators. But Carol, this touches on an issue that we were talking to before we actually called the meeting to order. And it's an issue that came up last night at the Cottonwood Heights Council meeting about the issue of safety at personal residences. There's a number of municipalities now that are running their own ordinances or enacting their own ordinances to provide some sort of safety ring around the personal residences of elected officials for the very reasons we talked about. My question is, do you know if there's been any discussion at the state level about that in light of what's happened with Dr. Dunn and with Governor Herbert and I think maybe even the now Governor Cox as well? Is there anything at the state level, or is this just going to be left to the local municipalities to decide whether they want to do anything or not?
I'm not aware of anything at the state level. It would be, I'd be very interested to know if municipalities are doing this. I think they are in Utah County. But I mean, the actions that we've seen are just appalling, and it's not right that by virtue of you being an elected official, or in Angela Dunn's case, an appointed public official, that your family would be threatened, that your home, your residence, that affects not only you individually. I mean, I can take the flack if I'm up at the Capitol, somebody yells at me, or I get mean emails and texts. I mean, I can deal with that. You know, I've been in this business a long time, but your own home and your family shouldn't be threatened. This is a huge concern to me. When I first got elected, there was a big issue about, there were a group of people who felt like who were angry at DCFS and thought the state was taking children away from families, you know, without reason. And they were very adamant and aggressive. And a group of them, maybe 6 or 7, showed up at some legislators' doors. And one of them was then Representative Pat Jones. And they were standing outside, I think, chanting and saying, "I hope you enjoy your Christmas, but I won't be with my kids." And you know, Dan Jones, he went out and told them to get the hell out of there. I mean, that was 20 years ago. And I mean, I thought that was unheard of. But think about now, if any of us speak out against things that, you know, these radicals are against, we are at risk. And I think it's a big concern. So yeah,
Well, I
I'd
guess
be
my
interested to know
question
if
was
you're
just,
thinking of something, you know, as
if the state was going to do it, we wouldn't wade into it. And I really don't know if our council would have any appetite for that or not. Now's not the time to debate it.
no.
But if it's not going to happen at the state level, I think it's something that Gina and I will maybe discuss and possibly put on an agenda just as a work session discussion to see, you know, if the council really has any legitimate concerns about it, and whether we should look at, because there are other municipalities that have enacted ordinances that give the police some authority to protect a radius around personal residences. So.
Well, and another thing, if I might add, in reference to that protest in Cottonwood Heights, when, yes, we believe in peaceful protests in public spaces, but if a group decides to march through your neighborhood, do you want them marching along Wander Lane? And, you know, any area in Holladay on a Sunday afternoon or any time without having formally notified the police. I think that's something to think of too, because that was something that was unprecedented and affected a lot of people in a negative way and their sense of safety.
I'd like to,
Both sides.
our elected officials at the state and representative level, senators and representatives are given an opportunity to ask for the highway patrol to help them. I think that locally, our local officials should consider something like that. I mean, it's sad, but it's nice to know that maybe that you could ask for that kind of dispensation. But Angela Dunn doesn't fit into that. She's a civil servant. She was not elected. So when we create this legislation, we would want to be cognizant of the fact that this has also been something our civil servants have been subject to. I'd also, with the Cottonwood Heights thing, I think we should all recognize that we should have better policies around what a protest is, what a gathering is. If they're going to get a permit, there should be parameters to that permit. I mean, when I thought about that incident in Cottonwood Heights, and Galen, maybe you know more about this, they did have a permit to meet in a certain park, but they did not have the blessing of the city to move outside of that parameter. So to those points, I think that we could firm up some thoughts, but as elected leaders at the state level, we do have the highway patrol to call on, but our electeds in our cities do not have that capability that I know of right now. So if that puts some parameters on that framework, I hope it helps.
Okay, thank you. So maybe if each of our representatives could take maybe, 5 minutes to really touch on maybe something that's important to them they're going to run, or a bill that they think is going to be important to our citizens in Holladay, either one. And maybe we'll start with Senator Iwamoto. I think she might have to drop off early. So Janie, do you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. And I just wanted to say, as a representative of color, we have had just recently, I don't know what the group is called, Citizens United or Proud Boys, or I don't know. They've been trying to get into social media and doxing and giving out our personal residence and stuff. So it is an issue, and we have called law enforcement, but I just wanted to mention that. And we talked about that with the governor, the newly elected governor today, and he's going to mention something in his speech. But I just thank you. And I want to say back to you, because I know a lot of you, and I thank you so much I'm so proud that you represent me and Holladay and mayor and city council people and staff. I've worked with you many years on different issues, and I appreciate you. I just want you to know that for people that live here too, there will be public comment, and people can come to the Capitol with masks, but virtual, it's going to be limited due to spacing. And I was shocked that on the floor, we're not required to wear masks. So that's a little issue to me, which a lot of medical people think that we're morons, which I agree. My brother's a doctor, and I just went to a doctor today, and he said, this is just craziness, So, and I'm continuing on to be assistant minority whip, and I'm on, of course, the executive appropriations, ledge management rules and ethics. And then I have natural resources and infrastructure appropriations committee, and then government ops, health and human service, and natural resources. And we did talk today about the proposed budget that will become public tomorrow. And I've been getting tons of questions on COVID and how you go about it. And you probably know this, but it's not, I was trying to find out, like, the medical people think they're going to be passing it out, and everyone, but it's going to be the county health departments. And they are going to have to go online to sign up when it comes open. So they haven't had problems yet, but they're going to be rolling out that this week and letting people know. And then as far as legislation, I'm trying to narrow it down now, but I have a couple of companion police reform bills that I had worked on for a while. And that is when an officer, it kind of started from my time with campus safety, and it's when an officer leaves and goes to possibly another law enforcement agency. And there's a lot of loopholes and some that Representative Perry ran. So he's been with me lock and step helping on this, and been meeting, I'm not kidding, tons of hours have been put into this with the City League of Cities and Towns and the sheriffs and the Post and others, and it has good support. I think we've got the final drafts on both. One passed unanimously, but we're making still a couple changes, and cover up those loopholes and make sure that the investigations are completed so that the receiving law enforcement agency will have that information. Then I have a campus safety bill that we're finalizing 2 of those, and it's that continues on with a study that I'm doing on campus safety from my last on police issues that came up under my first bill 2 or 3 years ago, and just seamless communication from on campus and off campus. And as we're studying that, I've had the greatest experience with students who really came out during the protests and then came to me, and we've been working on some. So I have 2 bills with them. One is to do a statewide commission for just students, and they feel that anything, it's too institutionalized to have it on their campuses. And so they have some great, wonderful ideas that USHE actually, they're all excited about. The other is that started from learning about this Block 44 at the University of Utah and other buildings that are not necessarily covered by the Clery Act, but we are going to ask for disaggregated information on the crimes that happen so that when, oh, sorry, that's my Hawaii 5-0 thing, sorry. Okay, my mother, sorry about that. So with that, we hope that when students and parents look for housing, it's going to be on documents, it's going to be on everything, that they have the information of what crimes have happened, domestic violence, sexual assault, because a lot of things are happening and they're university owned or leased, and that information has not been available. And so that's an important one that I'm working on. And then just a domestic violence, and I have some things for seniors and that came up during COVID times, and then some disparities issues for studies on the communities of color that have been disproportionately impacted economically, socially, and environmentally. And there's just a bunch others that I'll be happy to send a list to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Can I ask a quick question of Senator Iwamoto? Anything fireworks related?
Oh, I almost thought, oh my goodness. You know, I talked to Dan Peterson during this fire, and we talked because we have this group and we talk we've been meeting, and then afterwards we talked, and he said, you know, he informed me now, and I should talk to him again, but he felt like we had this big compromise, and it's really worked, although, you know, a lot of these fires have been, you know, people made, but he had said it's not so much the legislation, but the enforcement part of it. And so, and I have to say the chief our chief in Holladay has been really good and proactive about that, because when there's violations, they've gone out with the, you know, fire chiefs to the place of residence. So at this time, I don't think so, but I'll check that for you.
Okay.
And
thank you.
also, I wanted to talk about the garden.
Representative Suzanne Harrison was thinking about running a bill, and we sat in on a handful of meetings, kind of wearing our UFA hat. But just like Senator Iwamoto said, there's good things in the state statute. It's just hard to enforce, and so it's really hard without data to come in and ask for more when we know that we can't enforce. And so I think that's what a lot of the fire chiefs came around. You know, we can't ask for more when we can't enforce what we have, and we need better data. So one thing that the chiefs are working on is getting better data as to how many fires are started outside of the zones and things like that. So more data, I think, is where a lot of people are.
And I really think like the media's helped during these times just focus on, we haven't been doing the penalties that we put in place because I think once people have a penalty, maybe that would stop. But I think that it's been good with the maps and the cities having local control to decide where there should be no fireworks. And I think that's been helpful too. And I just wanted to talk about the garden there that we've been that we have on 45th South. And I guess it's in place, right, Gina, that we're continuing because Paul Fetzer has not been in great health, and he's been the one kind of lifting that heavy load, and I can get people to help here and there, but the contract is running out, and it should have been, so the Salt Lake City said they will renew it, but it's just a matter of getting some paperwork involved. And this group, Tom Rosenberg, Dr. Rosenberg, he has that Dry Creek Charity, and they've agreed they need to know there's some stability in that, and they will continue on with all that work. So we're really lucky. That's such a great thing for Holladay. So.
That's great. And just a quick update. Yeah, our attorney is working with Salt Lake City's attorney, and hopefully that'll be finalized in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Senator Iwamoto. Why don't we stay with our senators and pull in Senator Reeby so she can leave the classroom and go home at some point tonight.
We sleep here. You didn't know that? Just ask the kids.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, they put us in a little closet, and then they turn us back on in the morning, and we go about our business. We have a lot of education issues happening this year, as you can all imagine. I respectfully request that all of our cities and our towns work with our school districts. It's half of our state budget, and it's really important to creating a smart workforce. I'm running a bill to try to combat our learning loss. And a lot of our families decided not to send their kids to kindergarten this year. And so that's run across the demographic. We've also not had a lot of kids go to first grade because of COVID, and this is going to have long-reaching impacts. I know that our parents are doing the best they can, but it's not just about learning how to read. It's also learning how to decode and lots of stuff like that. So that's a big issue coming out this year. I am working on a crisis intervention team, and this would help us in our 13 health and human services areas to send out a crisis intervention team instead of the police department. This has shown to be tremendously successful in many other cities. And so instead of sending a policeman to deal with a person who's having maybe a psychotic episode or suicidal tendencies, you'd have a team that's been trained in this. And so I've been working with the health department to try to come up with some language that would give some money for this. And we are going to be flexible with one-time money or ongoing money to try to get this up and running. But I think this would be a tremendous savings for us. I'm working on a school board changing the number of signatures a person has to get. Our school board is really important, and it's creating some tensions when we have people that really aren't invested in the school system running for these boards. And I know that all these people come with passion, but on my time on the school board, we had a lot of people that were trying to derail some of the work that we had done in the past. And it's been really problematic to explain what a 504 is, an IEP is, how busing works. So I appreciate all the people that I worked with, but we do need to really allow more latitude in who can run for that sometimes, but also create a better process for them. Dan, I was an independent prior to running for this seat that I'm in right now. As a teacher, I always tried to stay apolitical, but it's hard to run as an independent to be a senator. So I have a couple of other bills that are still in process, but I'm mostly basing my experience in education and also trying to help create betterments in our society so that our communities can thrive without a lot of output from our tax dollars.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Senator Reeby? Okay, let's move to Representative Owens.
Try to unmute. How are you? Appreciate the chance to be here with you all, and look forward to getting to know some of you better. A few of you I already know. And I have been assigned, let me tell you my committee assignments: economic development and utilities and technology, and the appropriations committee is natural resources. And I brought to my interest in running for the office, what I brought to it was a real serious interest in trying to advance our state's outlook on its public lands. And one theory that I believe in is that there's a lot of common ground to be found if we can get both sides focused on the potential for outdoor recreation as an economic development tool. So one of the bills that I put in is looking to create a committee to look at putting a visitor center down at Bears Ears for the monument. The idea being to give people who've not liked the idea of the monument a path forward for turning it into an economic asset for the region. So that's one specific example. There's also going to be another angle to this. I think there's going to be a study come out from the Kem Gardner Institute in the near future, looking at how much the recreation potential of our state has mattered to the burgeoning tech sector. It now accounts for 1 in 7 jobs in the state. And the preliminary data that I've seen indicates that it's a real strong driver. Recreation access is a very strong driver for the growth of the tech sector in our area. And so one thing I'd like to explore, I'm trying to figure out how to focus on the tech sector's needs for recreation and how we can turn that into support for public lands. So there's a few other bills I've been kicking around. One is calling on Congress to renew the RECA bill, which provides compensation for downwinders. That's about to expire. Also, just as a new legislator, kind of drinking from the fire hose and trying to understand, what are some of the impediments to making real progress on clean air. I know there's been a number of great ideas that for bills that have been passed in the past, but also, but trying to figure out what is the reason that we can't make progress on, improving a building code for zero emission buildings or renewing fleets and getting more modern vehicles on the road and reducing emissions in those big substantive ways that we're going to have to do here pretty quick before we end up, even more seriously impairing our health. Why is it we can't put that coalition together to make those things happen? And so I've been trying to figure that out because air quality is a big issue for me. But anyway, those are some of the initial issues I'm looking at and working on. Oh, and I should add, I am very interested in any input from, if there's particular legislation that needs to be run for Holladay. I reached out to the mayor early on after the election and asked about that. So let me just give you my phone number. You're welcome to buzz me anytime. It's my cell's 801-792-9343. And happy to take any questions or pass the microphone.
Okay, we'll keep moving to Representative Benyon.
Hi, like Doug, I'm just busy learning a lot. Clean air matters to a lot of our constituents here. And I have been following our local issues with the widening of Wasatch Road and the plans for access to the canyons through transportation. I'm also very concerned about housing costs. It's to the point where it's going to affect our economy. It's so hard for people to afford to be able to live here. I've been attending meetings about housing for over a month, and so I've been learning a lot. I'm about to hopefully meet with Natalie Gochner and people regarding a possible study at what might be driving some of the homelessness and hopefully a review of our lease laws. That's one of my bills. I'm also have had people concerned about medical cannabis. We just started having that available in March. So I have a possible bill to consider opioid abuse disorder added to the list. And I should talk about that with Representative Moss, since that's something she knows a lot about. And then the last bill I have is about more funding for the Division of Licensing and the Department of Human Services to make sure that we adequately fund that division so that they can have, right now I've talked with them and they are underfunded. They have not been able to adequately look at the facilities that house those troubled youth that are sent to our state. And they are asking for additional funding through the governor's office, but I'm going to also have a bill asking for that so that they would like to have 4 visits a year to those facilities throughout the state. And they only need 9 more full-time employees. And, this is obviously a great need for families around the country. And we want to have those children and those youth in facilities that are adequately supervised. So that's my other bill. And I love Holladay. My grandparents were one of the first homes on Lincoln Lane. So Holladay is home to me, and I welcome any ways that I can help Holladay.
Okay, thank you, and good luck as you launch into this first session.
Thank you.
Representative Moss.
Thank you. Well, I want to begin by thanking all of you, both elected, our council members and elected legislative members and staff. Holladay is so well represented and it's just a great city, and I love working with you. And I want to say to our lobbyists that when people say negative things about lobbyists, the public, I say, there are good ones that we must have. For example, the ones that represent all our cities. We can't possibly, what, Galen, you have 5 different cities. Kathleen has what, 7 portions of. We can't possibly know how all the bills affect every city. So we really count on you. And thanks for hiring Maddie. Maddie Wolf, is she going by Carlson, her married name now?
She did the same thing I did. She just added on another name.
Okay,
Keep
then
on
look
adding
for
them on.
her emails. Not only was she my fabulous legislative intern, she was so good that I hired her to be my campaign manager, and see how that turned out. She did an amazing job. She's incredibly smart, works really well with people, and I hope you get acquainted with her. And fun fact, her husband, they just got married this summer, is the 7-foot center, Brandon Carlson, of the University of Utah basketball team. And he even went campaigning door to door with her with my t-shirt on. So that's my little claim to athletic fame.
Was it a
Carol,
crop
wasn't
top?
your t-shirt too small for him?
It was XXL and it hit him at the waist. He's not that big this way, but it hit him at his waist. Now, about my bills, the first one that's of importance that Kathleen is my Senate sponsor is to extend the suspension of required emergency drills in the schools to the end, till the end of the year, and perhaps to the, not just the end of the school year, but the end of 2021. I don't know if you're aware or not, but I ran that bill in a special session when somebody, it was Julie Jackson, our new board member, said people had asked her at Olympus Junior, what about emergency drills that we're required to do every month? I mean, we're trying to socially distance and keep kids safe, and then you have thousands of kids, in the case of Olympus Skyline, thousands of kids all evacuate the building for a drill. And the state fire marshal didn't like it, but I mean, let's look at priorities right now. Teachers didn't want it either. Skyline High doesn't even have a grass or anywhere for kids to go. It's being literally rebuilt around them with relocatables. So it occurred to me a week or so ago that we need to extend that because the original bill only went to March. So Kathleen's my Senate sponsor. I'm going to run again the bill that I've run 3 times now, I believe, the distracted driver amendment. So pay attention to your driving, both hands on the wheel. Don't hold your cell phone up while you talk. You can use your cell phone on speakerphone. And I hate to pick on Holladay mothers, but because I live here and drive and walk these streets, Holladay moms driving big SUVs with kids in the back and kids walking on and riding bikes on either side of narrow roads, holding their phones like this, talking, are a danger to their families, to the residents of Holladay, and that applies to the whole state. And just like we have seatbelt laws and we have speed limit laws, there is no reason why people cannot be restricted to using, if they're going to talk while they drive, to restricting. And Dave and Ashley, I forgot to tell you, I decided to run it. I wasn't going to, but I'm just going to keep doing it and reminding people. And I even had a prisoner from the state, Utah prison, write me a letter about prison conditions. And at the end, he went, P.S. my wife doesn't hold her cell phone anymore when she drives, because some people think it's past. So that's a good thing, right?
Carol, the best lobbying tool we now have is if they don't vote for it, you're going to continue to run that bill. So
Exactly.
Just vote for the bill.
And Senator Don Ipson is my Senate sponsor once again. And I've got a national expert on distracted driving that's going to help us all. Let the Spataforce help me with the police and
police
Carol,
chief.
I think you should go back through our records and take screenshots of our legislators who are actually holding their phones and voting. We had lots of senators doing that. And I know for a fact Ibsen was one of them. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Right. They do their meetings while they're driving and holding their phones.
Dropping it and in vacation and on vacation and driving while they were legislating. So I think that would be a great way to shame them. Say, if you don't vote my bill, I'm going to hold this up to everyone to see.
No,
Carol,
they're a danger to all of us.
As of January 1st, 2 more states disallowed the use of handheld cell phones while they're driving. I can't remember which states they were.
I read that, and you're right.
I think one was Arizona. I want to say Arizona. I may be wrong.
I think it was.
But there are 2 states, and you know, and I don't think either one were blue states.
No.
But now we can't. But anyway, we got to check that out.
Okay, the bill failed last year because of one person, Majority Leader Mike Schultz, because it had passed the Senate, passed the House, passed the Senate. It got held up for a week while they funded the fiscal note, and he wouldn't put it back. He wouldn't put it on the list to go back to the Senate in the last week, and I'll never forgive him for that. So I also am doing a cycling bill that I've done before, and law enforcement doesn't always like it, but you know, the use of bikes skyrocketed during the COVID. I think every family in Holladay got new bikes. So there are a lot of bike riders, and I've run this before, and Republicans really like it because it's less government. But why can't cyclists look at consider a stop sign as a yield sign, and then just roll through? I see it all the time anyway, and this would normalize what people are doing safely. And I took out the red light part because that was the part that people got hung up over. Because a lot of the bikes don't, trigger the light. And so they'd sit there at 6:30 in the morning up on Wasatch Boulevard up here. I've had constituents be cited for going through a red light when there's nobody in sight, but I took that out. Okay, now I also have a water bill, and Janie would probably just roll her eyes because she's the water expert, but I'm doing this specifically at the request of a constituent in Murray. And I don't know how it'll affect Holladay and Spatafores. I have, it's numbered, and I was madly looking for the number. I can't find it now.
Oh, it's 71.
Okay. Oh, you already know. Okay. No, that's lien restrictions, I think. Are you sure it's 71?
That's the lien recovery loan fund.
Well, that's not water.
Okay, sorry.
I'll tell you what that is. Okay, this has to do with tiered billing, and it was based on a bill that Lee Perry and I've forgotten who the senator was, passed a few years ago. And I talked to Lee Perry last week, and it's a water conservation bill, but the way Murray instituted the billing has doubled and quadrupled the cost of water, outside water for residents of Murray. And so if you happen to have a large lot, even if you're doing everything to conserve water, you have a garden, you have flowers, you have lawn, but you have all these conservation measures in place, you get to a certain tier and your water bill will triple. Like some in Murray are paying $800 a month, and it has no consideration of lot size. So somebody with a smaller lot could be wasting water and they wouldn't be penalized because they don't hit that tier. So I've presented it to the Water Quality Commission this summer, and some liked it and some said, well, this is a local control issue. But I'm definitely trying to get the attention of Murray City officials. I've talked to them about it because Murray City has a Facebook page where Murray citizens go on and rant and vent. And this is a major, major issue for them. And see, I don't know if it'll affect Holladay because I have Holladay water shares. So you know, you all need to let me know if it does. But whenever I now, going forward, hear a Republican talk about local control, I would like to remind them what they just tried to do to Salt Lake City School District. Don't forget that. You know, we believe in local control unless we want to control the locals. So anyway, we can talk more about water pricing structure if that's the name of the bill. I have an HOA bill. That's a House Bill 71, Lien Restriction Recovery Fund Amendments. And I'm doing this with he happens to be my neighbor, John Richards, but he's an attorney who does primarily HOA law, an awful lot of HOAs in Holladay and Murray and other places. And he used to be the head of the president of the Homeowners Association organization for the state. And I've done several bills with him. He's really good and really a good ethical person. But some people have found that they buy a condominium and they don't know that they had nothing to do with the construction of it, but what am I trying to say? The construction people who originally built it could come back on them and expect them to pay off loans. In other words, some people are finding they have these mechanics liens put on their condominium and they knew nothing about them when they purchased them. Does that make sense? I have really good talking points for it, but this is not my area of expertise, but John does a great job of, you want to have an expert if you do a bill outside of your area of knowledge. You want to have experts that can explain it better. But we have more and more HOAs, right? So I think this could be a positive thing for our citizens in Holladay and Murray. And then I have, let's see, I have a few others I don't really want to talk about because they're not all fleshed out. I unfortunately got sidetracked, not only because my husband and I both had COVID and he was very ill, and then one of our colleagues died recently, Representative Luana Lou Shurtleff, and I've really been preoccupied with that. And during the time she was in the hospital on a ventilator and communicating with her family. Today was her service, which I attended virtually and went up to the viewing last night. She's a longtime friend, educator in Ogden, and just a beloved figure. The one nice thing I want to say about Reagan Signs, though, is that Dewey Reagan knew her, and he has put a tribute to her on many of his billboards around the state. I mean, around Salt Lake County, and I applaud him for doing that. So any questions about these? I don't want to take too much time, but like I said, some of these they'll be numbered just within days. So I got most of my bills started early, but I need to get back to them and get them all ready to go and all my advocates ready to help.
Okay. Well, it is 5:55 and we were going to adjourn at 6 p.m. So it doesn't appear there's too many more questions. We've covered a lot of ground. So maybe if you could indulge me, I will take just a minute or two on behalf of our city council staff and the citizens of Holladay to thank you for your service, your willingness to serve our citizens. We all have great respect for the elected officials in this state, and specifically, you know, the ones that represent Holladay and the good work you do on our behalf. So especially in these times, you know, I think you need to be reminded that the vast majority of people really do respect the good work you do, and we're amongst those. And also want to thank, in advance the Spadafores, Ashley and Dave, for, you know, your representation of our residents and our city council as the legislature goes into session. And and really just thank you for taking the time to meet with our council. And we wish you all the best during this upcoming session, which will be very unique and interesting to say the least. But anyway, thanks so much. And with that, we will adjourn this session. So everybody be safe and have a great new year.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see y'all.